welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Arturas. He's a marketing specialist, and we'll learn about his three infrastructure pillars that he says every entrepreneur needs before growth, about philanthropy-based marketing, what that means, and why it works, and how to know if your business is ready to scale or needs structural repair first. Welcome to the show, Arturas.
Thank you for having me, AJ.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Arturas. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of businesses across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can build business that runs without them. We'll talk about all this, but before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Okay, so a little bit about me. 5 years ago, I started marketing completely from zero, so having no previous experience. Finished university with a completely different degree that has nothing to do with marketing. It was in business management, and simply decided to follow my curiosity instead of looking for what was the logical next step, and that led me to marketing, which was much more closer to my heart. And as you mentioned, philanthropy-based marketing kind of came from that idea that I simply wanted to give something, and management couldn't give me an outlet to give something because it's all about managing people and mostly about having difficult conversations. But marketing is something you can actually give, right? Because it's communication. There's a lot of things you can give, and the most important thing for me was giving truth. So that's how I ended up being in marketing, and simply started working for companies, started freelancing after a while. And I've worked with more than 200 companies over the last 5 years, and patterns emerged. I kept seeing the same problems, and so I decided, to kind of systemize the solution to the problems that I kept seeing. And what happened was that for every new client that I have, I already developed a system for myself to be able to instantly diagnose the problem and give them a solution. A lot of the times, it's personal problems that keep, business owners stuck, the way they see the business, the way they make decisions. And a lot of the times, it's, desire to gain something without giving first is what holds a lot of people without making a big of an impact. Because at the end of the day, business is all about making an impact. I mean, the common idea and the common perspective now that business is all about making money, and all the big companies, everyone who's in business in multi-layered businesses, the talk is always about money, and the investors come in, they're expecting to make money, and usually big businesses lose their soul simply because everything becomes about the dollar at the end. But for small to medium-sized businesses to actually get off the ground without a lot of capital or advantages that, a lot of these bigger companies, when they start, they do have those connections, they have the capital, they know the bankers, they know who can give them a big loan. They have all the resources, but the small to medium-sized business is a little bit different, and they have to use different approaches. And usually, in my experience, it all comes down to making sales, to making offers, making the right offers, and building the solutions that are actually needed in the market. And that won't come if you don't give something first. So sometimes that giving can be financial, but it doesn't have to be. Usually we pay in attention, right? So simply giving attention to people who you're building the solution for and having conversations and letting them do all the speaking is what I mean by giving. And so you're giving attention to people's needs and problems, and then building the business around that output what they give you. So yeah, that's a short introduction.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Arturas. So you work with a lot of coaches and consultants. So when you talk of philanthropy-based marketing for them, what is it that they can give? You know, a lot of service people, they think what I have is my expertise and that I should give only at a good price. You know, and a lot of people talk about high ticket clients. Amidst all these things, how do you look at philanthropy-based marketing?
So this approach, uh, it's extremely so. One of the biggest issues that I noticed when starting to work with consultants who perhaps decided to pivot into consulting. So let's say you've been in a company for 15 years, you've done so many things, and now you want to start consulting a little bit, and you want to spend more time at home and not be in a full-time position. Usually what happens is they have so much experience and they have a network, they know a few people, but when they start going online and start selling their consultations, they realize that there's no market fit, or they don't have a personal brand to kind of support that. And they start to struggle. And usually they struggle because they know how to solve a very specific problem, perhaps in a corporate environment where the structure is very clear. But when you come out into the big market, you're speaking a whole different language, and a lot of people they simply don't understand what you're talking about. But for you, it seems like common sense, and that disconnection is where the struggle comes from. So my approach is always to start conversations without a price tag, simply because you're not losing anything. You're still not having any clients because you're not communicating in the right way, or maybe there's not enough volume in the business to actually have conversations. So I always start simply having conversations, taking people into conversations, and kind of, I don't want to say lowering yourself to that level, but getting yourself out of your head and listening more to other people, and then finding a way to put your knowledge into their worldview. So that's the biggest problem that I help them solve, right? That gap, okay, I know what I know, I have my experience, and I want to charge a lot for my time, but nobody's taking my advice, nobody's taking the consultation. So there's definitely a problem there, and having systems built around that is what I focus on. And those systems are usually educational material or clarifying material, expertise showcasing material that can actually do a lot of the selling and a lot of the prospecting for you. So instead of you having to either make those manual conversations on Instagram, on LinkedIn, whatnot, and leading people to understand why perhaps your advice would be very useful, instead, it's better to have an asset base that you can easily send to prospects so that they could actually get to the level where you both understand each other and they understand why you might have the best guidance for them at that moment. So it's all about building that ecosystem of assets that you can actually easily send and distribute, instead of having to go on a conversation for 20-30 minutes to kind of identify what kind of advice you need. It's better to kind of give a lot of this information with an easy access so that you don't spend your own time doing the diagnostics before you can actually offer some kind of a solution.
Absolutely, absolutely, Arturas. So, to understand it in much more detail, let's look at coaches and consultants and also small businesses to mid-sized businesses. In terms of coaches and consultants, uh, they are the ones who are doing the work most of the time. So, how do you suggest to them that how they can run a business without themselves? So, how does that work? And also for businesses, they have a product or anything beyond, but not just service. What about them? Because a lot of times they feel they are very hands on. That's why people are coming to them. People know them by name. People want to talk to them at their store or whatever it is, or whatever service even from them they are taking. help us understand them. How do you move out of the business and that can run without you, both for coaches and consultants as well as small businesses?
Okay. So yeah, it's much easier to do for a coach or a consultant than, for example, for a small business. If you're providing an accounting service, for example, for a small business, there is no service without actually doing the accounting work. So as an owner, of course, delegating is the way. But for coaches and consultants, there's a completely different path that they can take, which allows them to actually get out of the business to a very big degree and still have sales coming in and still impact being made. And that is by having digitalized their service, right? So they know they solve a specific set of problems. Let's take, for example, a energy worker, right? So I have this client who's doing a lot of unconscious work. So they basically look at your history and help you with emotions, process and change programs and change the way you think. And that way you change your decisions and you end up having different outcomes in life. So what happens is that, sure, their primarily way of making money is going on these calls, having these sessions, and selling that hour, 3 hour, 5 hour sessions. But they tend to fix the same problems. So somebody's have the biggest problem perhaps for their client, or there's a pattern that it's always some kind of a relationship between me as a child and my parents, right? And maybe there was some psychological struggle when I was growing up, and I have a very specific program in my head that came from my parents, and I'm living my life and I'm still running that same program. So the coach would diagnose that problem in the call and then have some kind of a method to fix that. Either that's going to be journaling or some meditation or some like audio or some repetitions. There's going to be a way to change that programming. Those problems keep repeating themselves. So a coach can actually productize that same solution. So if they can see the pattern that there is this common problem, relationship between, for example, a man and his father as a child growing up, if there was problems in the relationship, it's gonna, so let's just make a product, a digital product, like an audio recording or a video lesson that's maybe up to an hour long. It's a whole seminar that basically onboards you and teaches you, okay, so this is the common problems that you probably had with your father, and this is the meditation we're going to do to actually start changing that programming. And that product is done once and sold however much, 1,000 times. So then it becomes, the problem becomes then distributing that specific solution and finding out the clients who actually need that specific case. And in that way, you can easily systematize. So usually, if a coach has been working for at least 3 years, usually they'll know all the problems that they help fix. And what I have to do is come into the business and simply digitize all those specific problems. So the patterns that repeat the most, we make them into products that sell by themselves, simply because they fix a very specific problem. The next problem becomes, okay, distributing. And distributing usually goes through emails and social media. So it's very easy to delegate social media management, and it's very cheap to a third party that produces content regularly. Then that content really picks on specific problems that your audience might have. And each content piece will drive you into a specific funnel or a chain of emails that bring in the awareness about the problem that the prospect might be having. And if that's done right, at the end of that chain, you can offer the solution. And usually this whole process happens behind the scenes. So the creator or the coach might not even be present around. He might be sleeping. Somebody makes a comment on the post. That comment gets picked up by a tool like ManyChat. Probably heard about it. Picks up by ManyChat. ManyChat pulls that person into a sequence where a conversation is happening whilst the coach is sleeping. The conversation is happening, and that ManyChat automation is basically asking the right qualifying questions from the prospect who commented on a post. And in that process, usually there's people falling off because maybe the prospect is not right, but the prospect who goes, yes, 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 this is the exact problem, this happened to me, they get offered that chain. And in that chain, we basically sell the coach's expertise, we sell authority, we sell its status. And as that chain goes through, the person who's at the end of that chain is a person who identified with a problem, already trusts the coach, and is basically ready to buy that solution. And that solution is already digital. It's a video seminar. Could be long, could be short, or a video course. And that gets offered to that prospect. And in this way, the prospect might buy it or not. It's not relevant. The idea is that they buy the solution and they get offered the best solution for their specific problem. And they go through the awareness raising funnels or levels that actually bring them up to speed with what to expect, what they're going to get, and if this is even for them. And if we have a chain of these problems, so for example, we focused on one single problem, one single product, what happens is that usually the coach actually has 30, 40, maybe 50 solutions that they actually solve, but they've not systematized. So then we just focus on making, kind of vertically making more chains and having different products. And slowly we're able to take the coach out of the business, or if they want to scale up the revenues and scale up the business, usually they don't take themselves out of the business. They start hiring a team and just pushing more content, pushing more products, and kind of building out the business. But if they want to work by themselves, just alone, they get more time back and back and back, because they don't have to do any of the diagnosis and they don't have to jump on a call to actually go through the session. The session happens automatically. Of course, there's always going to be people who only want the session. They don't want any digital products. They don't want anything else. They just want to speak to you. And in that case, you can actually raise prices. When the access to you gets higher, more expensive, it qualifies a lot of people to go into. If they're looking for an actual solution to their specific problem, then a digital course or a digital product is the best choice. But if they simply want to talk to you, it has to be expensive, and then the coach is actually able to charge a lot more money. But sometimes there's simply not enough attention for the coach, and that attention doesn't happen naturally. It doesn't just fall out of the sky. You actually have to make some connections to start the ball rolling. And usually at the beginning, of course, I'm talking to I'm talking about a coach who's been doing hard work for the last 3 years. But if you're just starting new, the first 6 months, the first year, you have to make as many connections as possible as a coach. And that means at the beginning, you're going to be making free calls, free consultations, just kind of introducing yourself to a lot of people. And after a while, after you make some consultations, the ball will start rolling and you're able to actually increase the prices, make digital products on the side, and kind of take yourself out of the business slowly but surely. Doesn't happen naturally, for sure. I have worked with a coach who's been doing coaching for the last 7 years, has about 30 digital products, but there is no backend system to sell those digital products. So they're basically not capitalizing on any of the digital products they created, and simply still making sessions and selling group coaching, selling a one-to-one coaching, and they're still stuck to their job. And they come to me because they want to get themselves out of that business and start using those digital products to actually fix the solutions. Because even the coach gets tired of doing the same thing again and again and again, because the problems that came to them are the same problems for everyone. The situations might be slightly different, but it's always the same problem. And usually the coach is positioning himself or herself to actually fix that specific problem. That's why they're the coach. But even they get bored of doing the same thing again and again and again. And usually it's a very natural path if you know what you're doing, that you're going to end up making digital products, you're going to automate distribution and slowly get yourself out of the business whilst the business is still running. New competitors don't know what you go through, so it's going to be it's going to be hard for them to actually replicate them. And usually that kind of protects you, because they still have to go through the same kind of building the network, building the first case studies, doing free work, and then building all the digital products and recording everything and producing all these things. So it takes a long time. So as a coach who's been in the business for a long time, you basically have nothing to be afraid of, because someone new is going to take 3-4 years to actually catch up to you at the same level, with same amount of products, with the same network. Of course, there could be people that come into your market with a lot of resources, a lot of capital, and sure, they can overtake you and have much faster results. But for that small business owner or a small coach who's there just starting, it's all about giving first, and then slowly you'll be able to take more and more and more. And if you're doing everything right, it's going to take less time to actually deliver, and you're simply going to start enjoying your work a little bit more, because you'll have to do less of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Artura. So, in a nutshell, what would you like to tell coaches and consultants and small businesses about what you do, and how they can actually gain more freedom for themselves?
Okay, so my highest leverage and my biggest advantage was that I was doing advertising for a long time. And now I actually, so taking my own approach, how I fix problems, I've actually made a free course. I put all my years of knowledge of digital marketing, specifically Facebook ads, and I made a course about it. It's like 40 lessons. All of my brain is put into it. So everything I knew, everything I learned, it's out there, and it's completely free to anyone, anywhere in the world. And I've done it because at the end of the day, a lot of people were telling me, oh, you're going to make your own competition. But my view to work is completely different. I don't care. Like, there could be thousands of people doing the same thing. That's going to mean I'm able to do other things in life. And I don't have to be doing the same thing for the rest of my life. And I don't want to be doing the same thing for the rest of my life. But I know that I have knowledge, and I have this big torch built up of knowledge, expertise, and I simply want to hand it off to other people, to the next generation, who perhaps want to take my torch, take my knowledge, take my skills, and help people and continue helping people at a very specific stage, right? Maybe coaches, consultants, and small businesses. Whilst I can go do something else, maybe focus on teaching, maybe focus on consulting, but doing the actual hard manual work, it's okay to kind of teach somebody else to do that. And for me to move on, that's completely fine. So this free course that I've made is exactly that, for a small business to come in, instead of hiring some ads guy to be doing all the ads. Sometimes all you have to do is make a few small connections, and you're able to do everything by yourself. You don't have to hire somebody on a payroll or a freelancer to actually get things moving. Sometimes it's easy to do by yourself, especially if you don't know what you're doing. It's really good to kind of jump in and at least start something. And usually this course is why they can at least make a move in the right direction. So yeah, to access it, all you have to go is to my Instagram and my Stan store, and it's there. You can enroll for free. Now, for small business with products, I think it's a little bit different. As we were talking about coaches, it's very specific, but for small business, it's all about delegation. And usually when you can delegate, then you're no longer a small business. You're starting to become a medium-sized business. But a lot of the problems come from not having good pricing and good offers. So either you fix a very big problem, and if you can fix a big problem, then you can charge a big price. And usually, if you have that offer, you have that big pricing, then delegating becomes kind of the natural path. If you cannot afford as a small business to delegate, then it means you're not charging enough. And So all you have to do is figure out a way to raise your prices and keep the service going.
Absolutely. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Arturas, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, want to become your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Simply message me on Instagram if you want to talk about how I could help your business. I do everything through my Instagram, arturas.marketing. And in there, you have access to, if you want to do everything by yourself, you have access to my free course. If you need my help or a consultation, we can jump on a call and I'll see how I can help you. And that's about it.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ.